Hey everybody, I'm Brian Stabnick. I teach AP Literature and Composition at Miller Place High School. It's in New York, and I was a reader for Q3 last year in Kansas City, the question that asked students to analyze the complex nature of a gift, and then connect that gift to the meaning of the work as a whole. Now in this video, I want to give you 3 tips that were my takeaways as a reader, but then at the end, show how those 3 tips can be applied to future prompts on the exam. All right, so 3 tips. Here we go. Number 1, the question asked students to analyze the complex nature of a gift. The way I see it, Q3 always has a small thing. So in years past, it's been a character of mysterious origins, or a character that experiences cruelty in some way. This year, it was the gift. That small thing always has to connect to a big thing, and that big thing is always the same. It's the meaning of the work as a whole. So with my first tip, I want to talk about small things. Now, there's 3 things that I noticed with the small thing, the gift. First thing was that lower level essays often just gave you plot. They talked about the characters. They talked about the gift. They talked about the situation. They talked about the outcome. And when I say talked about it, they just told the events. They didn't really dig any deeper than that. Mid-level essays went a step further. They did all of those things. They talked about the gift. They identified the characters. But they also showed how it was a burden. So they showed how it affected a character in some way. They also showed how it was a blessing. Now, the thing with mid-level essays is many of them did those things almost as separate entities. There was one sentence on the benefit, and there was one sentence on the burden. Now, upper-level essays did something important. They showed that that burden and that benefit created some tension in the character, that the character was really struggling with something. And that's the result of perceptive reading. It's about knowing your character well. It's about digging beneath the text and seeing what the text doesn't say, but what it implies. So my first tip is to really dig beneath the surface. Know these characters, know the situation, and don't just give the points of the plot, but really show analysis, which is unpacking things. Show how it's important. Show its significance. That's going to lead me to my second point. The prompt asked students to show the complexity of the gift. Now, complexity means that things aren't so simple. And this is the great way in which literature mirrors our lives, is our lives aren't so simple. We all have lives that are extremely complex. And what that means is that they're complicated, that it's kind of messy, that it's just not so simple. It's intricate. And the best essays did this. They showed how the character, as I said before, was really struggling, both with the benefit as well as the burden. Here's the ratio I teach my students. With your body paragraphs, you want to shoot for like a 25-75 ratio. 25% of the time, you need to give those elements of the plot. You have to identify who the character is. You have to explain what the gift is, and you have to explain the situation. But that should be only part of it, because the prompt asks you to analyze. And what that means is to kind of dig beneath the surface. So 75% of that time, you should be doing the things that I mentioned before. You should be stating its importance. You should show its impact. You should show how things aren't the same because of this small thing, that in some way a character is wrestling, in this case, with maybe an internal conflict. It's a question of morality. Maybe it's an external conflict. Something arises within the character as a result of this gift in which they have a problem with someone else. The third tip I want to give is maybe the most important. I've read Q3 twice in the past 4 years. And one of the biggest things that I see that's missing from student essays is that strong thematic connection. The prompt asked students to connect this small thing, the gift, to the meaning of the work as a whole. And a lot of essays I read never got to that point. They were so focused on the gift that they never showed its importance to the book as a whole. So, some things to avoid. First thing is, don't just give a one-word answer. Don't just say this connects to the theme of, and you fill in the blank. Second thing to do, it should be more than a sentence at the end of your essay. So the essays that I really liked the best did one of 2 things. One thing they did was maybe they wove it within their body paragraphs. So as they're analyzing the gift, they're always making that connection right after it, how it connects to the book as a whole. Another way they did it was with the concluding paragraph. At the end, they made this strong thematic connection. They showed that this incident that happens at one point in the book in which a character receives a gift impacts the development of the book as a whole. Doesn't mean they summarize the rest of the book, but they show how that moment has ideas, has values, has themes that connect to what the author is trying to convey throughout the course of the entire book. The way I explain it to my students is we use the butterfly effect. So if you know the butterfly effect, it's if a butterfly flaps its wings in one point of the world, it's going to affect something on the other side of the globe, something significant like a tsunami. And I want you to think about Q3 in that way. How does this small thing create the tsunami of the book? And not about events necessarily, but about ideas, about what the author is trying to convey. So if you look at those 3 tips that I just gave you right there, look at the small thing and really dig deep. Talk about complexity and show that these things aren't so neat. And then make a strong thematic connection where you're showing how this small thing connects to the meaning of the work as a whole. I think you're going to be in great shape for question 3. Thanks for watching this video, and I wish you the best of luck on the exam.